This is the review of Beowulf, the book, not the movie. Got it? Good, let's start. Hello once again, readers of good books. My name is Nick Pell, and this is once again coming from my college dorm. Now today I'm going to be talking about the book Beowulf. This is a book which is translated by Seamus Heaney. I have no idea if that's how you say his name, so I apologize if it is wrong. But this is Beowulf, and this is a book which was written a very long time ago, in like the 8th century, I think, maybe. And it is very highly likely that it was written by a monk. So there's a lot of Christian elements in this book which would not normally be associated with the culture which is talked about in the book, which is the peoples that were living in Norway and that upper area of the world. The book is an English text, so it is written in Old English, and then this translation has Old English on one side and then our present day English on the other side, so it is written in that type of format. It is about 200 pages long, and so let's talk about it. The main star of the book is a guy named Beowulf, and he is this warrior who has the strength of 30 men in both of his arms. And he is a person who, with his crew of men, go and sail to the Danes, and they are being attacked by a monster named Grendel, and that's where the story kind of starts out. We see a lot of background information in the first part of the book, and then we have Beowulf sailing over, and we don't actually learn who he is until a few pages into the actual text. And he takes on the task of eliminating Grendel, and that is kind of where the story goes from that point onward. I don't really want to get into too many specifics in case you haven't read Beowulf, but know that he does end up fighting Grendel and then Grendel's mother and then a dragon towards the very end. One of the main arguments about the book is whether or not Beowulf can be described as a typical hero, and that is something that I talked about in my class. And the idea of a typical hero being someone who's selfless and wanting to do things just not with any reward in mind. And does Beowulf fit that description? No. There's a lot of treasure involved in this story. It's mentioned about 4 different times, and Beowulf receives treasure every time he defeats an enemy, and that is something which is consistent throughout the book. There's even a story towards the end of the book about a king who was so consumed by his desire for treasure that once he died, he kind of realized, oh hey, this isn't really worth anything, and then he had to obviously leave the gold and treasure and stuff, and then the next king kind of distributed it as he saw fit. There's a lot that's said about this book in and of itself. A lot of it is obviously religion-based, because like I said, there's a monk who has supposedly written this text, and so he incorporates a lot of the religious stuff from Christianity into it, like mentions of God and the Almighty and all of those types of elements into the story. And you see that, and obviously, like I said, these elements would not be existent in the culture that he is describing, so those are kind of contradictory. It also touches on the role of women in the society. We see women as more of servants than anything else in this whole story, and even the idea that a woman can be tamed by a man when she is married, kind of along the same lines as Taming of the Shrew, which Shakespeare did many years later. And then there's also the idea of the warrior's code, like something that someone lives by. With another book which I'll be reviewing shortly, the Aeneid, we have Aeneas, who is a person set on kind of a destiny or a path that he has to take. And while Beowulf, he kind of takes the initiative. He goes and he pursues Grendel and seeks out the threat as he can. He's not really someone who has to be called to duty. He just kind of goes out and finds adventure and calling on his own. So that's kind of something which kind of separates Beowulf from any other hero that I know of at this point. Then lastly, pride. Pride is a huge part of this book because Beowulf is full of it. He likes to boast about what he's done. He seems to kind of assume a lot about himself, like he fights Grendel without a sword or a shield or anything, basically fist-to-fist type of fighting. And normally that would be suicide, but it's a story about a mythic hero, so you know what's going to happen with that. And so it's just a really interesting type of reflection about what can happen when you let your pride get the better of you, along with these other things that I've talked about. So, as a whole, I know I did talk about the story itself a lot, but more of what it was dealing with. But as the story goes, there's a lot of background information which the writer would have assumed that his audience at the time would have understood and didn't really need background information for. There's a lot of names that are kind of get confusing after a point, and all that type of jazz, which is kind of associated with these kind of texts. But the story in and of itself of Beowulf and what happens to him throughout the course of this story is quite interesting. I have seen the movie before. I read a shortened version of this text in high school, and so I knew more or less where this was going. But that being said, it was still kind of interesting to see how it was supposed to be shown to an audience, and I enjoyed reading it. It wasn't the most exciting thing I've ever read, but it definitely wasn't the least interesting I've read as well. So that's my review of Beowulf, and this is the, once again, translation by Seamus Heaney. And so if you are interested, make sure to go check this out at a library or at a bookstore or something. I'm sure you can find it wherever you see fit. Let me know what you thought of Beowulf down in the comments down below. Did you like it as much as I did? Did you dislike it for some reason? Let me know. And as always, my people, my name is Nick Pell, and once again, keep on watching.